Hey guys, today in this video I want to talk about watering, specifically watering containers. And this may seem like an easy subject, but it can be a little bit tricky and frustrating, especially if you're a beginner gardener. So the first thing I want to talk about are a few of the major factors that can affect how much water your containers need. The first one is what style of container you're using. So if you pick out terracotta, this is a more porous material that weeps water, more oxygen gets in and out of this container. So plants in these containers may need more water than plants in containers that are glazed, like glazed ceramic or plastic. Those type of containers retain more water. The second thing is soil, and they are not all the same. For example, this cactus mix is a really fast draining soil as opposed to the all-purpose potting soil, which will retain more moisture. So if I'm planting my annuals like petunias, superbells, verbenas, things like that, I'm going to be using my all-purpose potting soil. When I'm planting citrus, cactus, succulents, I'll be using this. So you just want to be mindful of what type of soil you're using and how much water it retains. In the same way that different plants require different soil, number 3 is different varieties of plants require different amounts of water. So you want to make sure you do a little bit of research. You can usually read it on the back of your plant tag to find out how much water your plants like. Like this evergreen shrub does not need as much water as these petunias. And this little succulent right here likes even less. So like in the summertime when it's 100 degrees outside, which it is right now, I'm going to be deep watering my petunias every single day. My evergreen I will check every day, probably give water every other day to every couple of days, and then my sempervivum here will get water maybe once or twice a week. And the last thing is weather, and this is the one that varies the most. When it's really cool out in spring and fall, you might be watering your containers every other day to every 4 days. In the summertime, when it's really, really hot, when it's 100 degrees, you're gonna need to be checking your plants every single day and probably giving them water every day. That's what I've been doing. It's been over 100 for the last week, and I've been watering everything once a day, but a couple of days ago we had a pretty breezy day, and I had to go out and water some of my things twice. So you just have to be mindful of the weather and keep on checking your containers. So those are a few of the things that can affect how often you're gonna need to water your containers. As far as how to water your containers, first of all, when I plant, I like to leave a 1 to 2 inch lip below the edge of the pot, and that way, when you're watering, water and soil aren't running out the sides. It creates a nice little well. As far as what I like to use to water with, I prefer to use just a straight up hose, and this is completely personal preference, but I like it because it's easy to direct in between plants and underneath plants into the container so that I'm not spraying the tops of the plants and getting the blooms all wet. I occasionally will use a wand because it's got a nice mist setting that's great for seedlings. When you water, do it really well. Make sure that all the soil is saturated and water is running out the bottom of your container. And this is what creates a really nice, deep, strong root system. If you're just giving a little dribble of water every day, the plant's roots will stay right at the surface level of the pot and it will make for a much weaker plant. So if they have to deal with extra stressors like a really hot, dry spell or extra wind, or let's be honest, you might forget to water your pots one day, it could mean the difference between a live plant or a dead plant. I only have a few of my containers sitting in saucers, so for those, I let the container drain and then empty the saucer of any moisture that has collected in there because you do not want your pot sitting in water because that can lead to rot. As far as what time of day is best to water, I say water whenever you can be consistent, whether that's morning, midday, late afternoon, or early evening. Do it every day at the same time if you can. The only time that it's not recommended is really late in the evening because the water usually doesn't have enough time to dry, and that can invite all kinds of disease and bugs like slugs or snails. The last and most important thing is to check your containers every single day. Look at the soil. Look to see if it's wet or dry. Maybe stick your fingers in there to check the moisture level. And just because one container needs water does not mean that they all need water. I think that's where we oftentimes go wrong. We see a dry looking container and then we panic and blanket water everything, even if they don't need it, and that can lead to sick plants. So just keep your eyes on your containers and they will look good all season long. So I hope this video was helpful to you guys. I hope if you had questions about watering, I answered them. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.